Mark, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about GSA?
Sure. I'm Mark McDermott. I'm with Gaming Standards Association, GSA, and I've been with GSA for about 3.5 years. Before GSA, I was with the Nevada Gaming Control Board. I ran the lab there for about 8 years, and I'm responsible for writing the Nevada's technical standards for system-based games and server-based games. And I've been stuck with those ever since. Like I said, I am with GSA now. GSA has been around for about 11 years. We have about 70 members or so from all over the world. We're an international trade organization. We develop communication standards. And when I say we, I mean actually our members develop communication standards. GSA has only about 8 people. We facilitate actually the development of the standards. Our members, our members join, participate in the committees, the development committees that form the standards. They provide the input for where the standards need to go, what new features we need to add, the message structuring, what we need, the stuff, how we actually communicate. Our members also approve these standards, vote on the standards, and send them out to the public. So GSA is just basically the structure and the facilitator to make this happen.
So, like for example, if G2S and S2S, these protocols that are pushed out, it's not going to be as if SAS was owned by just one company in IGT. It's not the same structure anymore. Great.
Yes, it is not the same structure. GSA's protocols, G2S, S2S, and all our protocols are public. When we're done with them, we post them on the website for everybody to be able to download for free. They are owned basically by the public, by GSA, by the committees that develop them. That would be, there's no one single manufacturer is responsible for making the protocol, and there's no one single manufacturer that has any kind of control over the protocol.
You mentioned that the committees are comprised of actual gaming manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera. How would tribal gaming regulators get fit into this whole process?
Right. As you mentioned, the committees do have both operators and manufacturers as members, and they're the ones that develop the protocol. The regulators, they don't participate in the committees, but we are incredibly concerned about making sure that the protocols, when they're done, enable our manufacturers to comply with all the regulations. So what we do is we specifically go out and look at regulations that are published. I specifically reach out to regulators and talk and make sure that we're able to meet their requirements, read through RFPs. Also, we look for regulators, if they have any questions or concerns, to give me a call. I would be their contact, and they can give me a call with questions as far as do the protocols meet this requirement or not. But like I said, we're very concerned. A protocol that doesn't allow our members to meet the regulatory requirements doesn't do anybody any good. And when we find something, if there is an issue, if there's a problem, something that we have missed, we try to make sure we get it in. For example, when we have GATT in the G2S protocol.
And GATT stands for?
And GATT is Gaming Authentication Terminal.
Oh, thank you.
We also have GATT in S2S protocol. Now, it's not the GATT that you're used to, the GATT3 that you plug into a slot machine. It's the same thing. You're able to verify a game, but you can do it remotely. This was specifically a request from a jurisdiction, a regulatory jurisdiction here in the United States. Early in the process, they said, look, they needed this capability. They wanted to be able to validate a slot machine basically from their office. So we put what we call GATT class into G2S and S2S to be able to provide that capability. Also, a jurisdiction in Australia had a very interesting requirement for a hard meter disconnect. We didn't have the ability to report that function in G2S, and once we discovered that was a problem, we added it. It's very, very straightforward. That's how we do it. If there's something we're missing in a regulation or a technical standard, we make sure that we get that in so we're not missing any longer.
Those examples you just gave about the one regulator in the US, what was the process that they used to reach out to you and ask for these improvements or these upgrades or anything? How can the tribal regulators initiate a similar process?
Yeah, sure. Call me up. That's how. To get the GATT put in, the jurisdiction contacted me. We invited them into one of our meetings. They explained what their requirements were. We wrote them down and we put them in the regulations. For the one in Australia, that was on a regulatory review that I was doing, actually, looking through the regulations, and found this thing we weren't able to comply with. Contacted the regulators there to make sure this was still valid. They were still concerned about this thing, and they were. So we included it in the G2S standard. We now have, for example, a hard meters disconnected event in G2S as a result of that.
Mark, can you tell me a little bit about G2S and how it's different from SAS, and also some of the capabilities and functionalities that it provides for the regulators?
Sure. Well, first off, where G2S fits in the program is right between the systems and the game. Here, this general diagram, this shows you where S2S is. This connects all of the systems in the back of house together. Then G2S talks from S2S from the back house systems to the games on the floor. So, even though it's small on the paper, there's a ton of information that moves, that goes back and forth with G2S. Now, if you look at the next slide, the next slide shows the current floor situation. As you can see, between each EGM, we speak SAS from the EGM to the SMIB, and from the SMIB down to a central monitoring system or casino management system is a proprietary protocol. And the key here is to notice that all of the games, all the information from the games communicates to one particular server. That's the casino management system, and if you want information from the floor, you have to get it from this particular server. You can't actually get it from the game. Moving to G2S, though, that changes. G2S eliminates the need for a SMIB and connects the EGMs directly to the host systems. What that does is allow the individual host systems, more than one, to get their information directly from the EGM. For example, here, the regulatory server can be a separate host on the network and can get any information they need from the game. One of the coolest features of G2S, actually one of my favorite features, is events. There are literally hundreds of events in the G2S protocol. An event is something that happens on an EGM. It can be a door open, can be a game start, can be a coin put in, a logic door open, a progressive win, a bonus hit, literally hundreds of events. Everything that happens on the EGM will generate an event. Now, why that's cool is as a host system, for example, the regulatory host system, you can subscribe to any number of events that you're interested in. So if you are concerned about, for example, from a regulatory point of view, when somebody opens a door, you would subscribe to the door open events. If you're concerned when somebody puts a certain number of $100 bills in a game, you can subscribe to the note acceptor events. If you're concerned about when a progressive hits, there's a progressive hit event. In that way, from a regulatory point of view, you can get the information you're looking for in real time, which means in time to do something about it if that's required.
You mentioned a little bit about S2S when you're giving us a demo of G2S on the diagrams up there. Can you go a little bit more detail into it?
Sure. S2S is our system-to-system protocol. It's primarily set up to connect servers to servers. That's specifically the function. In a casino environment, that connects different the accounting system with the data mining system, with all of these interesting the systems that need to move information back and forth. In the diagram of the G2S protocol, where we had the different host systems, S2S would be in back of each one of those host systems, connecting each one of those together. That's basically how it would work in a Class 3 environment. In a Class 2 environment, basically the same kind of a thing, except that typically we've seen S2S being used to connect from the particular central servers that run the games to a central vouchering system, also a central vouchering, central accounting, and central player tracking system. That way you can have multiple Class 2 vendors all using the same voucher authentication and player tracking and accounting system. Makes it very handy for Class 2 operations. This is especially handy for the Class 2 that also have Class 3 involved on the same floor or in adjacent, however it works. because it'll support the Class 3 operation just the same as using Class 2, both with S2S.
And they can use the same single point of ticket sales, like if they're using ACSC or Advantage or something like that, then they can just have that one ticket go through all the games regardless of what class it is and regardless of what authentication, because S2S allows for that.
Yes, correct. Regardless of exactly what you said. Regardless of what system you have, also of what what game manufacturer you have, should work. S2S also connects the kiosks. So the kiosks are also on that same. If you have redemption kiosks, for example,
Okay.
on that same kind of a thing.
Mark, you and I are both former state regulators, and as such, anytime new technology was being deployed, one of the challenges was how do you effectively regulate new technology? These open standards are going to be such a challenge. How would you recommend tribal regulators deal with this challenge?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The technology is always a challenge. The technology, what we found is technology always changes faster than the regulations and technical standards can. This falls to the regulators. What we tried to do, though, in the GSA protocols, G2S in particular, is to provide some additional tools for the regulator to help them deal with this technology and some of the changes that are happening on their floors. For example, we require encryption. So all of the information in G2S and S2S is encrypted. So looking on the line isn't going to do you any good for that. That helps a lot. Also, we have GAT. GAT, as we discussed earlier, GAT is not the serial GAT, but it's a way for a regulator to be able to authenticate from the back-of-house system across the casino floor. That makes things much easier for them. It's a huge tool for them to be able to have more visibility on the floor. S2S has GAT also. This GAT allows you to, this S2S portion allows you to validate the content servers for download servers. Because you're wondering, well, has anybody messed with that software? You can check. Works basically the same thing as the same way as a G2S GAT. You can supply seeds and things if you like, just like your regular serial GAT. So that combined with some of the authorization features and the extra information from the events that you can subscribe to that are able to feed the regulator, we think that will help ease some of the difficulties in getting by this new technology as it enters the market.
In the same line of questioning as before, are you aware of any S2S and G2S deployments in the field in any regular jurisdictions right now?
Sure. Yeah. Oklahoma, for example, the Choctaws there are using S2S. In Florida, the Seminoles are using S2S and G2S. Mississippi has got a G2S system, a download system on field trial. Detroit has a G2S system on field trial. And Missouri, I think, is using them, as well as Nevada. City Center, for example, is going with G2S and S2S for their